When you are filing a visa application for your spouse to come to the US, the form you need to get ready to file is the DS-260. This is the visa application. Yes, you filed the I-130, the I-130A. Now you're at the embassy stage. The DS-260 is your first step. So let's get into the forms and show you exactly what they're looking for from you and what you should be aware of as you're going through the forms. I am U.S. Immigration Attorney Lilian Chukwurah with Lilly Legal, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. Now let's get into the DS-260. So the DS-260, like I said, is the visa application. This is all done online with the State Department. This is not something you print out and fill out on paper and then file. So the first thing you need is you need the welcome letter from or welcome email. So the first thing you need is the welcome letter or welcome email from the National Visa Center, which will include the case number and the invoice ID number. You need those two things in order to start this process. So once you have your case number and invoice ID number, you'll come on the CEAC website and start the process. So the first thing you need to do is log in. So like I said, you need the case number and the invoice ID number, and then you need to select your relationship with the case, okay? So what I mean by relationship with the case is I am the applicant, meaning you are the person that is going to be filling out the visa application. You are the one being filed for, so therefore you are the applicant. For my clients, when we're doing their DS-260, I am the attorney. I'm the attorney helping you with the whole process. So when I'm filling out your DS-260, I am logging in as the attorney. You can also log in as the petitioner. This is the U.S. citizen or permanent resident that's filing for their spouse will be the petitioner in this case. And then there's third-party agents. You can give a third party that is not an attorney access to your account. There's a whole way to do it with the National Visa Center. But that's what that is referring to. So you need to select one of these options in order to be able to log in, all right? And then finally, you need to do the I am not a robot characters, and then you can log in. Once you log in, it's really important to look over here. Up here, you'll see your case number. You'll see your visa class. That's the category that your visa is going to be based on, right? So just keep that in mind. Your visa class is the category that you are getting the visa under. So for example, for spouses of U.S. citizens, they are going to be either IR1 or CR1. So that's why it's really important to look at that, just to make sure that the category is correct. And then it's going to say where your case is currently at. So sometimes this will say National Visa Center, NVC, because they need you to submit your application to then process it and then send it to the embassy for the interview. And then the country that you're going, that you're from, and the interview location. This can be different from the country you're from. And then the priority date, this again will be on your I-130 application. The receipt notice will have your priority date on it. Your approval notice will also have the priority date on it. If you are the spouse of a U.S. citizen, you do not have to worry about priority dates because you are always a priority, meaning there's always going to be a visa available for you. However, if you are the spouse of a permanent resident, you need to pay attention to your visa priority date, because if your priority date is not current, meaning if you are not able to immediately get a visa, you are not going to get an interview, and you may not have access to CEAC to start that visa application. So it's really important that you are looking at both of those things. But if you're in here, it means you are ready for this step. So this says incomplete, but when you first log in the first time, it will say start. Okay, so you click on start and start entering your information. So once you click on start, it will bring you to this page that basically gives you the breakdown that every single thing needs to be in English, and you need to answer the questions in English, not your native language, English. Okay. And that you're saying that you're going to answer the questions accurately and completely. So once you certify that you understand all of that, you can continue. And this is the first page. The first page asks you for your name. Again, this is copy and paste from your I-130A. So don't feel like, it's a trick question. No, what's the name that's on your I-130? Again, this is for the spouse that's going to be coming to the US that needs the visa, okay? This is the information for that spouse. So you're going to be entering your name. If you have the technology to enter it in your native alphabet, if it's not the Roman alphabet, you will do that. But if you do not have the technology, you can just say you don't have the technology or it does not apply if it doesn't apply. And then if you have used other names, you will say yes, it will give you a drop down to put those other names. Your sex, your marital status, again, this is everything you put on the I-130A. Now you just have to do it again for the State Department. So remember, USCIS and the embassies are in different departments of the government. So you have to do this again. I know, but you have to do it again. So you need to enter all your information. And one tip, right? One tip, if you get nothing else out of this video, if you are going to be doing the DS-260 on your own, the one tip you need to know is that save often, okay? If nothing else, save often. The CEAC website tends to glitch. Sometimes it logs you out when you're still working on your stuff. So you want to always be saving. Once you finish a page, save it and then continue. So that if it logs you out, you can log back in and start where you left off. But if you don't save, like let's say you go through the whole thing and you never save your application, then you don't have anything saved when you log back in, okay? CEAC is finicky, it has glitches, save as you go, please. All right, so next up, this is just showing you more of the drop downs. Just make sure, again, that you are entering everything fully. If you have multiple names, if you have used aliases, make sure you are entering those, please. So on this second personal page, you are going to be entering your nationality, your country of nationality, not the country you live in, because your country of nationality and your country of residence can be two different things. So just make sure that your country of nationality matches the country that gave you your passport. If nothing else, just remember that is the country that gave you your passport, where you are from. So, and then enter your passport information. If you do not have a passport because maybe you're a refugee, but you have a travel document, you can also use that document, okay? Remember, all travel document, all passports must be unexpired. Okay, all travel documents, all passports must be unexpired. So if it has expired, you need to go ahead and renew it before you put it in here, because if you put a date that shows that it has expired, you cannot move forward. So make sure if your passport is expired, that you get that renewed. Okay, so this is asking if you hold any other nationality. So if you have citizenship in multiple countries, this is where you will put that in. Okay. And I am scrolling through this because, again, these forms are done online, and the only way to get access to the forms is by having a case number and an invoice ID number. And I, for privacy purposes, will not ever show you the CEAC by actually logging in, because that will show you client information, and we're not doing that. We don't do that over here. So this is something that the State Department basically put together to give you the gist of what a DS-260 is without actually giving you the form, okay? So there are going to be pages that I skip past. It's not relevant, okay? It's just explanations that I will be explaining to you anyway. So keep that in mind. All right. So again, personal information, they repeat themselves a lot. They repeat themselves a lot. So over here is just, if you do have more than one nationality, you're a citizen of multiple countries, you want to make sure that you put that here. And if you have a passport from those other countries, you're putting your passport number. Again, save as you go, right? Present address. This is where you currently live. You, the person applying for the visa, where do you currently live? And when did you start living there? And then when it comes to the previous addresses, this is where people really have a lot going on, right? So this is different from the I-130A. The I-130A technically just asks you for your address for the past 5 years. For the past 5 years. The DS-260 asks you for your address since you were 16 years old. Okay, we have had to do this form for someone that was 80 years old and having to remember where they have lived since they were 16, and trying to find documentation to help them remember all of that was hard. It was hard. So this is one of the things I tell my clients ahead of time that they need to start getting together, which is, where have you lived since you were 16 years old? Of course, if you're filing for children that are under 16, you don't even have to worry about this. If you're filing for children or your spouse has never lived anywhere else but where they currently live. Let's say they've lived with their parents their whole life and they have never lived anywhere else. That's perfect. We've had that situation, and all we put right here is the date, right? The date they were born is the date they started living there. So really important. This is not something to skip on. This is not something to make up. You want to make sure that you are very clear and as close as possible to those dates. All right. And the cool thing about the CEAC is that it will tell you what date you turn 16. Right? That's the cool thing here. It tells you when you turn 16 so that you know what you need to do. And again, that's the cool thing. It tells you when you turn 16 so you know where you need to start in that calculation. All right. And then your phone number for the past 5 years. So if you've ever used any other phone number than your current one, and those phone numbers were active within the past 5 years, you need to go ahead and put those additional phone numbers. And then your current email, and then if you've used any other email, even if you don't have access to that email anymore, even if you deleted that email account, you still have to put it if it was within the past 5 years. Your social media, every single platform that you have ever had for the past 5 years. Okay, so your current ones and the ones within the past 5 years. It doesn't matter if you were locked out of that account. It does not matter. You still have to put it. Okay, so really, really important to think about that and make sure that you have that list ready to go. And again, save as you go, because matters. You do not want to be in a situation where you're not able to have access to what you already put in and you have to start over. You don't want that at all. All right, so here is your mailing address. Again, this is for the person applying for the visa. Is your mailing address the same as your present address? For most people, it's a yes, unless they live in a country where they may have a PO box or something like that. And I should mention, most of the time, the National Visa Center and the embassy will not send you physical mail. They will send you an email. So your email address has to be one that you always have access to. For the permanent address, this is for the address that you're going to live in the US, okay? Not your address in your home country, but where you're going to live in the US. So this will be your spouse. So this will be where your spouse currently lives and their phone number. And this question right here is really important because it's asking you, where do you want your green card sent once it's approved? Right. So once you have your visa, you come into the US, where would you like your card sent? And if you want it sent to the same address, you just have to say yes. If not, you have to put the address you want it sent to. So this is what it's showing you here. So if you say no to your card being mailed there, you just have to put an alternative person and address and phone number for that to be sent to. All right. And again, and I should flag something for you. If this address where you want your card sent is different from the address where your spouse lives or where your spouse gets mail, just know to be ready to answer questions about that at your interview because the officer is going to clock that. Okay, it raises red flags. So just know that as you're going through this process. And then here again, same, just in case your answers change. All right, so same. So now we get into the family. So your parents, this is really important. If you know your parents' names, their date of birth, their city of birth, their state, country of birth, make sure you put that in. If you do not know any of these things, you can select do not know because it gives you that option. I've had people be like, oh, I don't know. Should I just make up a number because I think it's 19 something, but I'm not really clear. Select I don't know. Select do not know if you do not know, and there's no way for you to reasonably find out. So if your parents are deceased and clearly you can't ask them what their date of birth is and you never knew, just say you don't know. It's okay. It's okay. And then this is going to ask you if your parents are still living. If yes, it's going to ask you for their address. If no, it's going to ask you for the year that they passed away. Okay. Same thing for your mother. Okay. So here, like I said, if they are still living, you need to put the date, the address where they currently live. All right. And then if they are deceased and they're no longer living, you need to put the year that they passed away. All right. Different combinations. All right. And over here, it's just showing you that if you do not know, you do not know. I know I said it, but I always have to come back and say it again. If you do not know, you do not know, and it's okay to not know. All right, so next up is your spouse. That's your petitioner, right? For a marriage-based case, your spouse is your petitioner. So you would put your spouse's information here. Again, nothing different from the I-130, right? You're just putting the information from the I-130. Because your spouse is your petitioner, they are not immigrating with you, right? This is for cases where the spouse is not in the US and will be traveling with you or does qualify to be a derivative of your visa. So then you would say yes, and if they're joining you right away or if they're joining you later. Okay, so you just answer those questions. And then just more variations. So Once you answer that, you put their current address. It will ask you for their occupation. Really important. Don't miss that. Their occupation. What was their occupation? Are they employed? Are they not? If they're employed, when, where do they work? Kind of thing. Okay. Again, just like you did on the I-130. Okay. So don't freak out. I know this is just giving you different variations of the same question and how you answer it, right? What options will come up for you. So here is do you have any previous spouses question? So if you've been married before, obviously this would be a yes. If you've never been married before, then this will be a no, and you just move on. But if you have been married before, they want to know how many times you've been married, right? How many previous marriages do you have? Their name, date of birth, date of marriage, date the marriage ended, and how the marriage ended. And finally, where the marriage ended. So if the marriage was terminated in your home country, you select the country, okay? That's really what they're asking for there. And then next up, do you have any children? This is any children. Does not matter if they're going to be traveling with you. Does not matter if they're over the age of 21. Does not matter if they're married. If you know you have children, the answer to this question is a yes. Again, it does not matter where they are, any of that. If they don't live with you, does not matter. Do you have children? Yes or no? I have seen this question, people answering no to this question, come back and bite them later. So just answer yes or no. You having children is not a negative if your children were born before your marriage. So really. But answering no can come and bite you. So number of children, their name, date of birth, place of birth, if they live with you or not, and then if they're immigrating with you. So are your children included as derivatives? For children of US citizens, right? If your petitioner is a US citizen filing for you, this answer is no. They are not immigrating with you because they cannot be derivatives on your visa application. But children of permanent residents can be derivatives. So different, but that's just how that works, okay? So here we get into the more security questions, right? The details that they want to know to determine, should we even give this person a visa? Right? That's where these questions come in. So your previous US travels, have you ever been to the US? Right? If your answers are no, that's fine. But let's go to where the real juice is, right? Have you ever been in the US? If you say no, you don't see any of this. So if you say yes, it wants to know, were you ever issued a A number? If yes, it will ask you for your A number, right? The date you arrived and how long you stayed. The reason they're asking you for how long you stayed is that they can quickly see if you overstayed your visa. Okay? It's really important. And then if you have ever been issued a US visa, you will say yes, the date you were issued the visa, the class of the visa. So let's say it was from like the 70s and you have no clue what type of visa you had. You can say you don't know, but really try to find out. That's the best advice I can give you. Try to find out because that matters. And then you want your visa number. If you still have the passport with the visa in it, great. If you don't, just say you don't know. They can find you. Have you ever lost your visa? Have you ever had it stolen? Yes or no? Have any of your visas been canceled or revoked? Again, they just want to know. Have you ever been refused a visa, refused admission, or withdrawn your application for admission? Meaning you came to the US, right? And refused admission is you came to the US and at the airport, they said, no, you cannot come in, and put you back on the plane and you were out of here. Withdrew your admission is the same thing, except you said, you know what? Can I just withdraw my application for admission and leave so that I don't have any negative consequences? So really important that you answer that question correctly. So next up is your work, education, and training. They want to know what you do for work. If you are unemployed, you just say that, okay? Again, it's okay to be unemployed. If you are working, you want to put the industry you're working on, where you're working, all of those things. Have to. Have you ever had any other occupations? Yes or no. So have you ever worked? Okay. So if you work at more than one place, that's what this is asking for. Do you have other occupations? The next step is going to be where you've worked previously. So really important. Oh, and I should mention this question right here. In which occupation do you wish to work in the US? That question, just say what you think you may want to do. Just say what you think you may want to do. You are not bound by your answer here. You could come to the US thinking, okay, I'm going to go to nursing school and do blah, 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 and become a nurse. But you get here and you're like, maybe I want to do something completely different and do construction or do something that is not nursing, right? That is okay. They understand. But what do you intend to do? That can change. I've had clients where their intention was to be a housewife. And then they get here and things change in the family and now they have to work. They're okay with that, okay? So now we get into your previous work and education history. So if you've ever worked before your current employment, you will say yes. If you have never worked before your current employment, you'll say no. Have you ever had secondary level education or above? This is important. I need to say this. Primary school, elementary school does not count. Okay? They mean secondary school, high school, and above. So if you went to high school, does not matter if you finished. Does not matter if you finish. If you went, you need to put it here. If you have any additional degrees, you went to university, things like that, you'll put it here as well, okay? So let's scroll down and show you what that looks like. So right here, were you ever previously employed? Yes. Well, this is everything they need from you. So if you've been previously employed, they need the name of the employer, the address, the city, everything, the phone number, your job title, your supervisor's name, everything. Okay. The telephone number for the job in case they want to, check it out. You want to make sure that you're putting all of that, and then your dates of employment, when you started and when you stopped. And then for your secondary school education and above, they're looking for the name of the school, the address of the school, what you studied. So if you only did secondary school, you can put academic, okay, or vocational, depending on the type of school. All right. What kind of diploma you received or degree, the dates you attended that school. That's what they're looking for here. Okay. And remember to save. Remember to save, because this is one of the parts. I've had situations where we were just entering things because the client had like 5 degrees that we had to enter here and forgot to save. Because I was in a row. We were in a row. We were going and did not hit save. And guess what happened? Guess what happened? CEAC logged me out. So had to do it all over again. So please learn from my mistake. then do that, save as you go. So here it wants to know, have you ever traveled to any countries or regions within the past 5 years? Have you ever served in the military? Again, these are things that are important because they want to know where you have been, and make sure that it is not something they need to worry about or ask you questions about. And then next up is the military service. Again, they want to know if you have served in the military. Depending on the country, that may or may not be an issue. So they just want that information. Make sure you are putting all the information. Next up is your travel. So again, military service. Have you been in any organizations? Do you have specialized skills in these things? Again, they're trying to get information, because the more the answer here is a yes, the more they need to do a deeper background check. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's why they ask about explosive and nuclear chemical experience. Okay, whether you've been in a vigilante, paramilitary, insurgent group, there's a reason they're asking. And then if you speak more than one language, you want to say yes and put that there. And then this is just a drop down of what you actually see when you select military service, for example. Again, it gives you that breakdown. You can list all the organizations that you have been a part of, any skills you have had with explanation of those skills. So that's really important. Any groups, right? Vigilante, paramilitary, with explanations, okay, of when you joined and things like that. And then any languages that you speak other than your native language, you want to go ahead and list them. So here it's asking for your petitioner's information. This is your spouse if it's a marriage-based application. So your petitioner is your spouse. So you'll put who your petitioner is. This one gives father as the example, but you will select your spouse and then put their information here. So name, address, phone number, email, save. Okay. You don't want to do it again. Okay. Name, address, phone number, save. And then we get into the background questions. This is where they decide if you have things that they need to ask you about at the interview that may disqualify you from getting the visa. All right. So if you have any communicable diseases, including TB, they want to know that. So if you know about it, you need to disclose it. When you do your medical exam for the interview and they find out that you do have a communicable disease, they're going to know that in there, and you're going to need to get treatment. If it's something that can be treated, you need to finish that course of treatment and be cleared before the embassy can issue you a visa. For example, TB, depending on the severity or whatever, the treatment plan can take 6 months. Okay? The treatment plan can take 6 months before you can be cleared to then qualify for a visa. So they really want to know that on the outset. So if you don't know, you say no. If you do know, you say yes and explain. Over here is, do you have documentation to show that you have all your vaccines? For most people, this is a no, right? Unless you have been keeping up with all your vaccines and have records of all your vaccines, this is going to be a no. Typically for our clients, we just say no automatically and say that they will have it at the interview. So I don't know if I have it, but I will have it all by the time of my interview, because you're going to have that medical exam. And at the medical exam, one of the things they do is make sure that you're up to date on your vaccines. And if you're not, they will give you those vaccines for your exam, okay? Do you have a mental or physical disorder that poses, this is the important part. So just because you have a mental or physical disorder does not disqualify you. The important part to keep in mind is that mental or physical disorder has to pose or is likely to pose a threat to the safety or welfare of yourself or others. Okay, that's really important. Really, really important here. So if it has that possibility, you can say yes. This is a medical thing. So if you don't know, you don't know. But this is something we would talk to our clients about and make sure we have medical records or evaluations from doctors and things like that to overcome any of that issue. Next up is, are you a drug abuser or addict? Again, typically we would want medical records to back it up if you are saying yes. Okay. Those are medical diagnoses. It's not something that you diagnose yourself with. Keep that in mind. All right. So then the criminal questions: have you ever been arrested or convicted of any crimes? Drug related offenses are really big. And then, has your spouse, son, or daughter violated drug related laws, right? Trafficking laws. So if you are the parent of a drug trafficker, you may not qualify for a visa. So, and the reason that you may not qualify for a visa is if you benefited from the funds that came from that illegal activity. So they always have to ask, make sure you're answering these questions fully and completely. If any of these ones there's a question mark, please consult an immigration lawyer. Stop. Okay. If for any of these there's any question marks, you're not sure, stop, schedule a consultation. Okay. Stop and schedule a consultation, because if you answer something incorrectly, that can derail your whole situation. So please schedule a consultation with an immigration lawyer if there's any question marks on any of these questions. Okay. And then these are security questions, making sure you're not coming to the US to, sabotage, commit espionage. Like, you're not a spy. Let's break it down. Are you a spy? Yes or no? Right? That's what this is asking. Are you a terrorist or, are you a terrorist? Yes or no? Have you ever provided financial assistance or other support to terrorists? This is important, because if you financially support a terrorist organization, you do not qualify for a visa to the US, okay? Unless you meet certain requirements. But for the most part, it's a no. It's a no, okay? So support of terrorist organization, being a member of terrorist organization, inciting genocide, torture, killing people, all of those things, recruiting child soldiers, all of those things raises a red flag and makes you ineligible, okay? If you say yes to any of them, you have to explain. If you say yes to any of them, you have to explain, okay? Are you a member of a communist party or totalitarian party? They want to know. There are some countries where you do not have a choice. Everyone is required to be a member of the party. So in those situations, it may not be as harmful for your case, especially if you were not like an active participant, right? Next up, for people from Colombia, have you assisted directly or indirectly any of these groups? Important, because if they are considered a terrorist organization, that again, issues for you, okay? And then I've used your position as a member of the government or a political position. So you need to make sure that you're answering all of these questions. All of these questions, okay? Trafficking, basically, basically, with these security questions, they just want to make sure that you are not going to pose a threat to the U.S. national security and to the safety of U.S. citizens, okay, and U.S. nationals. They want to make sure that you're not going to pose a threat. So because of that, they're going to ask you these questions, and lying on these questions can lead to you not getting your visa as well. So if there is one of these things that apply to you, it does give you the space to explain. For the most part, if any of these are a yes, consult an immigration lawyer, okay? Immediately. If you're getting value out of this video so far and you're thinking to yourself, some of these stuff may be applying to me and I may need to schedule a strategy session, don't hesitate. Go ahead and schedule that strategy session, because it is going to be the best thing you do for yourself, because it will help you make sure that you are on the right path as you are going through your application process, and make sure that you have someone in your corner that's helping you as you go along. Have you ever sought or assisted someone in obtaining a visa through fraud or willful misrepresentation? This is a yes, if you have ever done it, even if you didn't actually get the visa. So if you've ever lied or presented false documentation or anything like that to try to get a visa or to enter the US or help someone do that, just know this is a yes, even if it didn't work. Even if it didn't work, they went to the interview and they were not approved, it's still a yes. Sorry. Have you ever been deported from any country? Yes or no? And then you just explain, okay? All these yes or no questions, if you answer yes, it needs an explanation, all right? If you answer yes, it needs an explanation. So more security questions. So again, important question here, fraud and willful misrepresentation. They want to know, have you ever been deported from the US? Been in deportation proceedings, so had to go in front of a judge? Have you ever not attended a hearing in immigration court within the past 5 years? Have you ever been unlawfully present in the US or overstayed your visa? All of those things matter. Again, if you answer yes to any of these questions, explanation is needed, okay? We have had a situation where the client overstayed their visa by like a couple months. They still qualify for the immigrant visa, right? But because they overstayed their non-immigrant visa by a couple months, we still had to say yes and explain it with the law saying that they still qualify because they did not have any bars. But we need to explain it, all right? And prepare the client for the interview, because that's going to come up at the interview. Really important. And then these are all about felonies in the US. If you stayed in the US for too long, like all of these is about your time in the US. If you've never been to the US, then most of this do not apply to you, okay? But if you have been in the US and one of these things applies to you, you need to explain. And part of your explanation needs to also be why you still qualify for it, right? Have you ever withheld custody? They really care about US citizen children not being unlawfully taken out of the US. Okay, so that's these first two questions, okay? US citizen children not being unlawfully taken out of the US. If you have legal custody and you are allowed by a US court to take the child outside of the US, then then this is a no. But if you did not have custody and you did not have permission from a US court, this is a yes. The child does have to be a US citizen for this to be a yes. Have you ever voted, renounced your citizenship, went to elementary school when you were in F status? So again, if you've never been in the US, some of these questions are just no, because it doesn't apply to you. If you've never been in the US with an F status, it doesn't apply to you. And then the F is a student visa, just to be clear. All right. So both of these questions about skilled or unskilled labor, medical school, all of that is really more for the employment base. So for most people that are filing based on marriage, the answer to those questions are going to be no. All right. Same with the healthcare worker question. That's not why you're coming to the US, right? So are you permanently ineligible for US citizenship? Okay, if you've had issues in the US, you've had things, if you said yes to a lot of the criminal questions, the security questions up until this point, you need to stop and consult with an immigration lawyer to know how to answer the rest of these questions. That's what you need to do. Okay, you need to stop, schedule a consultation, and let's talk if you are permanently ineligible. All right, next up, have you been in the military and then left during the time of war to basically keep yourself from going into the military? Are you coming into the US to practice polygamy? All right, are you a former exchange visitor under the J visa that has a 2-year? If you've never had a visa to the US, this is a no. Okay, if you've never had a J visa, this is a no. I've had people with J visas that met the 2-year residency requirement, and we were able to just say no to this question as well. But if you're a J visa holder and you have not met your 2-year foreign residence requirement, you may be able to qualify for a waiver of that requirement, but you need to get that waiver before you can get your visa. All right. Okay, so next up is the frivolous asylum application. Have you filed an asylum application knowing fully well that you don't have any fear, there's nothing in your past that qualifies you for asylum, and you just filed it to file something, right? That's what frivolous means. It means you have zero claims, you have zero fear, and you still filed an asylum application. That's frivolous. If it's just that you have fear, but the judge or the officer didn't think it was enough to get you asylum, that's different. Okay, that's not frivolous. Are you likely to become a public charge? With this one, you really want to pay attention to the fact that you're filing an affidavit of support as part of your application, right? You're probably going to get a job, or you have family that's going to support you. So are you actually going to be relying on government benefits? The answer to this for most people is no, because they will have their spouse to support them. All right. So again, if you answer yes to any of these questions, you need to provide an explanation. And then the last set of questions here is about your Social Security card. So have you ever applied for a Social Security number? If it's a yes, were you issued a number? If it's a yes, what is the number? If you do not remember the number, you can say you don't know, but if you do remember it, make sure you put it here. Then, do you need a new card issued? Yes, right? So this is because you already had one before, they're asking you now, do you need a new one or do you still have that one? All right. So if you need a new card issued, you'll say yes. If this is your very first time, you've never had a Social Security card ever in your life, then obviously you would say no here. Have you ever applied for one? No. Do you need a card issued? Yes. And then do you authorize and then do you authorize the Department of Homeland Security to share your information with the Social Security Administration for them to issue you the card? This is yes, okay? If you say no, they will not issue you the card automatically. Really important. And then once you have that all done, you move on to the sign-in page, okay? Now you can sign. What I do for my clients is once we get here, we've put everything in, there is this next button to review. It will show you a listing of all the questions, all the answers in all the categories. And I print that for my clients and have them review it. We go back and forth, make sure everything is completely accurate. And then they can go on to the next step, which is to sign and submit. For my clients, we are the preparer, right? We are always on the hook for our clients because you didn't fill out this application, we did. So we want to make sure that we show the embassy that you did have assistance. In some situations, if there's a mistake that was made on our part, we want to be able to go to the embassy and say, hey, by the way, this was our mistake, not the client's. However, if the person is not put in that they prepared the application, you are on the hook for any mistake, even if it's the person that made the mistake. So just keep that in mind. Really important. So we would put out information, and then your case number, your passport number, and the security code, and then sign and submit. That's the next steps that you need to do. Once you sign and submit, you can go to the confirmation page. So once you submit your application, your DS-260, you will come to the confirmation page. You can print your confirmation page. You can also print the DS-260. So the form that you filled out that was submitted, exactly what you submitted, you can print that out. You can also have the confirmation sent to your email so that you always have it. We do this for our clients. We save the confirmation. We upload it to their client portal, and we also send them an email from CEAC giving them the confirmation as well, because this way you just have access to it whenever you need. And then down here, you'll see it will have your information, the name you provided, the country of origin, the date you completed it, your case number, and your confirmation number. So, and that's it for the DS-260. It is one of those things that I absolutely have had people stressed out about. So yeah, that's the DS-260. This is definitely one of those applications that is so detailed and so time consuming that I have had people just throw their hands up. I don't want to do this. So if that is you and you're watching this series and you're realizing that there's a lot that goes into it and you don't have the time or the energy to do the applications yourself, or you want to make sure that everything is done correctly, because like I said, when one thing goes wrong, you can end up delaying your entire case. So if you want help and you want to have someone in your corner that's going to make sure that all the forms are filled out correctly, you have all the right supporting documents and everything that the embassy needs, go ahead and schedule a strategy session with me. Let's talk about your situation, figure out the best way I can help you. Depending on the stage your case is at, that's going to depend where we come in, what we can do for you. And then you can decide whether you want me to jump in and help you the rest of the way. If you want to schedule a strategy session with me, you can do that by going to my website, lilylegal.com, and clicking on Contact Us. There you can pick a date and time that works best for you for us to chat about your situation and see the best way I can help you. You can also call my office at 508-443-1788.